So I woke up this morning with my anxiety on 79. Is that an accurate number? Who knows? Sometimes it feels like 3,000. But I wanted to film this video for a while now. But if I actually sat down and tried to formulate it and pin it out and make notes, it wasn't going to happen because anxiety is a bitch. Okay? So basically, this serves as the intro to this video of how anxiety shows up oftentimes different in Black women and what that can look like. So y'all stay tuned for this video. So before we get into the nitty gritty of anxiety as it relates to Black women and how it plays out in our lives, I want to cover a topic, a quick little definition of a word that I like to call intersectionality. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of this word, but this word makes all the difference when it comes to understanding anxiety for Black women specifically. So intersectionality is an analytical framework for understanding how a person's various social and political identities combine to create different modes of discrimination and privilege. Intersectionality identifies multiple factors of advantage and disadvantage. So basically, if you were in school at one point in time in your life and you remember Venn diagrams, there were those circles that started to overlap. That is essentially intersectionality in layman's terms. It's basically when there are different overlaps that contribute to your lived experience. So for example, there are certain things that apply to women that apply to me. But there are also certain things that apply to being a Black woman specifically that apply to me that don't apply to all other women. So we're talking about those intersections where different parts of you meet and they inform your identity as well as, like they said, your privilege or your advantages or your disadvantages in life. So with that being said, anxiety. All right. So for starters, we live in a society that likes to coin everything as a journey right now. I don't know if it's my group, millennials, or the generation after me, but we love to call things a journey. I can very palpably, very tangibly remember the first time I dealt with what I now know is anxiety. I was in my undergrad year of college. I was a sophomore. I was either beginning sophomore or I was in my second year of undergrad freshman in college. And I remember standing outside the doctor's office, crying on the phone, talking to my mom, telling her that I think I need to talk to somebody. I think I need to see somebody, meaning a psychologist. And she was like, there's nothing wrong with that. You should make an appointment. Now, up until then, I came from a family that wasn't very big on speaking about our feelings. In fact, I was the child that used to get reprimanded for being too sensitive because I cried all the time. So I'm taking those nuggets of information with me as I go into this new journey of becoming an adult, because in college, you're trying to find yourself, you're getting to know who you are as an adult, you're finding your social circles where you fit in certain areas and arenas. And it all came to a head one night when I told my roommate, hey, I think I need to go to the hospital. I can't catch my breath. So now I know I was having a panic attack. I didn't know what it was then. And literally the doctor, when he finally saw me in the emergency room, he was like, what's going on? What are you stressed about? And I was like, what do you mean, what am I stressed about? And he basically told me, all your tests are beautiful. There's nothing physically wrong with you. But he actually prescribed me. He said, I prescribe you to drink a glass of wine and chill out. That's literally what this white man told me. So with that being said, I took that information and I started doing my own calculations and research and things like that, and realized that I was suffering from anxiety. So that was probably back in 2004, 2005-ish. Yes. So it wasn't until 2020, literally the year that the pandemic started, that I realized, hey, I finally need to talk to somebody. I've been saying this for years that I need to talk to somebody, but I have a lot of stuff that get off my chest. There were a lot of emotions in me that were suppressed. There was depression, oppression, regression. All the S's were plaguing me in my life. And I realized that me, the loner, the nomad, the introvert, all of those titles that I had along my way as an adult, I was not, even though I love being by myself, I was not handling the pandemic isolation well. So finally, I went on one of the apps, found a therapist, found my first therapist, and that's when this anxiety started to make sense. I started to give voice to it. I started to understand my feelings better, and I started to really be able to pinpoint, hey, this is a real thing. This is not an imagined thing. This is not me dreaming of things. This is not me making things up. This is my actual experience. Now, my first therapist was a white and Latina woman. So I remember it came a point in our sessions where she was like, do you feel like you're holding things back? Like not fully being able to express yourself because I'm not Black? And I said, I don't think so, because I really trusted her and I loved her. To this day, we keep in contact. Like, I really trusted her. But then again, when she asked that question, first of all, psychologists and therapists don't just be asking questions. There's a reason for their questions. Second of all, the analytical mind that I have was like, let me actually dive deeper. And I actually was like, well, maybe there are some points where I am holding back or restricting certain things because I feel like she won't understand. Enters the word I just talked about, intersectionality. There are certain things as a Latina woman you wouldn't understand or be able to identify with a Black woman's lived experience, okay? Even though we're both women, even though we're both women of color, and even though we're both marginalized and or minority women groups, there is still a very specific, very distinct lived experience of a Black woman, specifically a Black woman living in America. So with that being said, I started to kind of delve deeper into this idea of intersectionality and anxiety as it relates to Black women. So some of the things that I found, and I actually came across this when I was talking to a friend of mine probably like 2 weeks ago, because he is a Black man. Now, he was just telling me about, his business. He's a business owner. That's another thing. That's another intersection. I have been an entrepreneur for 10 years now. So we have, my intersections are woman, Black, entrepreneur, like a non-traditional job. What else? Single, no children, come from a Christian background. What else? These are all the intersections that make Nicole who she is. So all those layers inform the anxiety. So I'm going to experience anxiety differently than other groups of people. So one of the things he was talking about was how he just continues to be like unorganized. He can't seem to like be on time to places. He was specifically talking about his punctuality and being on time to places. And I was like, you know what? There's something I realized about me specifically, that when it comes to like procrastination, for example, I used to think that I was procrastinating because I was lazy and I just couldn't, I just didn't have enough discipline, because that's the things that they teach you. Like the reason why you're not getting stuff done is because you lack discipline. If you listen to all the gurus and the motivational speakers and the people that get up, go, grind harder, the ones that be hollering and screaming at you, those people will tell you that the reason why you have procrastination or you procrastinate in your life because it's your fault and you lack discipline. What I learned is that is a way that my anxiety plays out into my life, because a lot of times I don't get too many panic attacks nowadays, like where I'm literally like trying to gasp for breath or whatever that looks like. I don't usually experience panic attacks, but how my anxiety plays out in my life, and I know that my anxiety is on high alert that day, is usually through things like procrastination. Now that doesn't sound like they go together, but like I said, those intersections in my life have played a role, and I've been able to identify them and unravel my actual symptoms of anxiety, one of them being procrastination. A lot of the times I procrastinate because I feel overwhelmed by all the things that go into a project. I began to realize that the small things like sending invoices, sending out quotes, doing bookkeeping, Literally the customer service, talking to people, onboarding clients, doing all of those things gave me anxiety. And just thinking about having to do those things, OMG. So instead of doing any of those things and bring on the anxiety, I would just get anxiety about thinking about doing things. So what did that in turn do? Hey, Nicole, we're not doing anything. Which led to procrastination, which led to even more anxiety because I still have to get it done because I promised these people these projects. I promised them these quotes. I promised them these invoices. I made a whole bunch of promises that I was not capable of doing because I felt overwhelmed. I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I was sinking. I felt like I was not handling my business as a boss chick well. So I realized that when I'm highly anxious, I procrastinate. The second thing that kind of ties into that, which is what I was telling my friend and kind of related it to him, I said another reason why I procrastinate, and which kind of feeds the procrastination monster in my life, not only is it anxiety, but it's also, number two, Black women. We are not taught that it's okay to celebrate our successes. Okay. Baby, that could be a whole video by itself, okay? As Black women, we are reared to be strong. We are reared to be, to persevere. We are reared to be determined. We are reared to be smart. We are reared to be beautiful and gorgeous and do everything for the entire world, including our families and the world at large, for the entire world with a smile and a snatched waist. That is how we are reared. So with that being said, I come from a place, a very real place of success is mandatory for Black women. First of all, fail, who failing? A Black woman and failure never is allowed to be in the same sentence, let alone in the same stratosphere. Okay, because that's how we're taught to be. We are to succeed. We are to hold it down. We are to be the creme de la creme, the top of the top. We are not allowed to fail. As a matter of fact, we're not even allowed just to be, okay? Because we always have to be 10 times better than, okay? Because that is our birthright. That's how we're raised, okay? Then we add on intersections of religion. Like for me, Christianity was my intersection. That's what I grew up in under. So being successful and being a determined Black woman with a Christianity covering also meant that it was the holy and the godly thing to do to be a successful Black woman, to be a determined Black woman. So if I was failing at being successful or being determined or getting the grades or making the mark or showing up as my best self or making myself likable and lovable for everybody, not only was I failing myself, I was also failing the holy mandate of God. It's a lot. It's a lot to carry. Let that sit with you. Let that meditate. Let that marinate. You can see how the anxiety is building. You get it? Are you understanding it more and more? So not only do I feel like I'm failing myself, I'm also failing God. I refuse to celebrate my wins and my victories because I was too busy in my mind, because this is how the anxious mind works. In my mind, on to the next, on to the next, on to the next, building, constantly trying to beat myself. What's the one thing that people like to say, the gurus? Your only competition is yourself. You're competing against yourself. But if you're constantly competing against yourself and you're never giving yourself the victory and you're never celebrating your victories, you're going to begin to hate yourself. That's the thing they don't teach you. That's the thing they don't say to you. They conveniently leave that part out. And they conveniently forget to tell us that that's why we're so anxious and so high strung. And since Black women are not given the opportunity, the space, or even the welcome to fail, not even just publicly, but just like in our own personal lives, like with ourselves, that leads to this lack of celebration. I only more recently, and I still don't even know if I fully celebrate the things that I accomplish, the things that I do, or just saying, Nicole, good job, we made it through the day. Like, I have to be very conscious about the idea of just celebrating me and my being, not even my accomplishments, but just me being a human being. I have to be very conscious about celebrating that. Like, girl, we made it through. Girl, we ain't run nobody over with our car today. Girl, listen, we didn't cuss their ass out today. You did a good job. Or girl, we woke up, we breathed, we drank our water, we minded our business. Congratulations. Even that, like, that lack of celebration was a number 2 indication of when my anxiety is high. When I am not celebrating myself, when I am super, like, on the other side of celebration is this super uber hyper critical version of me that is constantly like, you got to get this done, you got to make this happen, you are the one that's going to break the generational curses in your family's lineage, you are the one that's going to make it happen, you're going to be the first this. And like, when you are a trailblazer, and my trailblazers, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand and stand to the front and step to the front. Please, my sister. When you blaze the trail, remember, it wasn't nobody in front of you. They're just people behind you watching you, and you're going to look crazy to them because they ain't never been on this trail, because that trail ain't never been there before, because you're the one making the path. So being the one that is trailblazing, as well as being the first, as well as just doing all the things, you know, and then not celebrating on top of that, anxiety, number 1. And a lot of this stuff is like cause and effect. Was it a chicken or the egg? Did the anxiety come because I wasn't celebrating myself, or was I not celebrating myself because of the anxiety? I don't know. I can't answer that for you, but all I know is that these are certain signs that I have as a Black woman, that I realize that when I'm highly anxious, I'm not celebrating myself. The third thing, and this is a big one for me, of how anxiety plays out in my life as a Black woman, isolation. I will disappear. Disappear. And I do it so slick. You talking about ghosts. You know how you ghost people? You talking about ghost. Listen, I will disappear. 3 months later, show up like I never disappeared. You know how people like to come on social media and be like, I'm about to do a social media cleanse. So everybody, if you don't see me anymore, then, you know, I'm just doing a cleanse. Girl, I don't make no announcement. Have y'all heard from Nicole? Where Nicole at? That's how I disappear. That's how I goes. And then, you know how people be like, I'm back. I had my social media cleanse and now I'm back, y'all. So how y'all doing? Girl, I don't do that either. I don't make an announcement that I left or that I came back. All of a sudden, you'll just see me repost a meme that I thought was funny, or repost a song, or share it. That's how I show back up. So isolation, it's a real thing when I am highly anxious. When I am highly anxious, 9 times out of 10, you won't see me. I've learned through therapy that a lot of that has to do with not being trusting of other people, not having the space to fully be myself. So the only time where I feel safe enough to express myself is by myself, you know. And we're still working through the nuances of that, you know, with therapy. I feel safe in isolation a lot of times, but also too, I realize that the isolation could lead to other deeper, darker things like depression or depressive episodes. You know, I've never been officially diagnosed as having depression, but I know that I have definitely dealt with depressive episodes, you know. And in those spaces, it's very touch and go a lot of times. You know, there are days where I feel fine, you know. I'm productive. I'm being who I'm supposed to be in this society as a highly functioning Black woman adult. I'm being that person. But even in those episodes, I don't feel homeostasis or equilibrium or centered with self. Even though I'm doing the performance part really well, like I'm performing as a Black woman really well, I don't feel well within myself, within my mind, within my body. Like even more recently, my gut has just gone, I don't even want to say haywire, because my gut has always been an indication of what is really going on in my life and what I'm really not paying attention to, or what is really like brewing under the surface. Isolation is definitely a big indication that I am highly anxious. If I disappear, if you don't see me post videos for a while, most likely your girl is anxious and her anxiety is at 3,000. The fourth indication of how anxiety plays out in my life as a Black woman specifically, for me, irritation and agitation. I be irritated about everything. I be irritated about the sun. I be irritated about the rain. I'm irritated about my hair color. I'm irritated about not having hair color. I'm irritated about my glasses. I'm irritated about my contacts. I'm irritated about how somebody said something. I'm irritated that somebody didn't say something. It doesn't matter. And I used to think that this was, because again, we've been programmed to think that, and I'm not saying physiologically, hormones do play a part in a lot of this stuff. I'm not saying I'm a doctor. I'm not saying I'm any of that. But to blame this irritation and agitation on my hormones, like, you know, I have the apps too where I keep up with my cycles and my periods and knowing when they are. But a lot of times it don't be having nothing to do with my cycle. I am irritated because I am anxious. And why am I anxious? The world. My world as a Black woman in America. All the things could lead to irritation and agitation because of anxiety. All the things. But having the clarity and understanding, like, girl, okay, you're anxious. That's why you're irritated. That's why you're agitated. That's why everything is rubbing you the wrong way. That's why you're waking up on the wrong side of the bed. I get it. It's okay. And it literally, what therapy taught me too, is that the awareness, like people like saying, oh, awareness is half the battle, or awareness is the key. No, awareness, really, me understanding that, oh, this is what that is, it doesn't provide the solution, because that's what my analytical mind wants immediately. It wants a solution. But it does just give me a place where I can kind of just have a sigh and exhale, a selah of sorts, like, whew, a woosah, like, okay, we anxious today, honey. And then I ask myself the key question, so what do we need next? What we need right now? Sometimes, I'm looking at them now, my little ashwagandha gummies. I seriously been contemplating smoking again. I used to be a chimney in college, where I partook in plant medicine, you know. But I'm still turned off by smoking and smoke in my lung. I don't like that whole thing. And then I am anti-vape because I feel like manufactured. That's a whole nother story too, but girl. But there are ways that I am researching of how to take the edge off when it comes to anxiety. And I pray, I meditate, I journal, I do all the things. But there are also sometimes you just need a little extra oomph, you know, to help you deal with the irritation and the agitation that sometimes shows up as a result of being anxious, being an anxious Black woman living in America. The last one that I want to touch on that's also like a red flag that I'm having an anxiety flare up is I be angry. Bust the windows out your car, angry. Run over you with my car, angry. Cuss your ass out, angry. Okay? Livid. I don't think y'all understand. Livid. Not with anybody specifically. Not with any topic specifically. Just brewing. Just anger. Just I will fight you. Just I wish a nigga would. Just I'm ready if you ready. Just if you froggy, then jump. If you feeling froggy, jump. I be there. I'm not too deep off in horoscopes, but I'm a Taurus. And the bull, them horns be ready to charge, okay? And when I'm that way, because naturally, I am kumbaya, peace to all. I am the peacemaker. I am zen. Most of the times, I don't give a damn about nothing, child. I'd be like, oh, okay, whatever. But when I'm on one, I know I'm anxious. I know I'm anxious. When I want to cuss you out, because cussing somebody out is not my first. I don't go there first in my mind. My first thing, usually if somebody like comes at me a certain way that like requires me to have a reaction, my first thing is kind of like, what you got going on today? You all right? You need some water? You dehydrated? What's happening? I'm usually that person. But if my first reaction is they're acting silly and I'm like, bust a move, I'm anxious. Yep. There's already some stuff happening under the surface that I ain't identified yet or that I'm not really paying attention to. I am anxious. If I want to whoop your ass, I'm anxious. Yep. But here's what I love about anger. Specifically being an angry black woman. Because the systemic, okay, I got to overbite so them S's get caught up in there sometimes. The systemic racism and all the other isms, sexism, classism, fat phobia, all the other things, you know, that plague this world. They have made us feel like anger is the problem, or us being angry is the problem. Everybody else gets to be angry but us. You know what I'm saying? And even like in our own homes and how we were raised to be meek and mild and nice and likable and respectable. Nobody wants to journey off into what I like to call those like dark emotions. And I don't equate dark with evil because that's another thing that we've been taught. That'll be another video if y'all want to. Comment below. But I like to call them those dark or those shallow emotions because those are the emotions that make people feel uncomfortable. But let me tell you something about anger. Anger gets shit done. Anger gets stuff moving. You want somebody to come to attention? You want a situation to change? You get pissed off about it. Watch some shit change around you. And an angry black woman, that's why they want to suppress that. That's why these systems are in place. This oppression, this white supremacy is in place to oppress that. Because an angry black woman on a mission, baby, should clear this shit out. Consider it done. Consider it over. Consider it finished. And that's the thing. There is power in your anger as a black woman. And even the Bible talks about holy anger. And the Bible just says, let not your anger cause you to wrath. Like there's a difference between wrath and anger. Anger is okay. I'm okay with anger. I am okay with sitting in my angry black woman energy. I'm okay with that. Now, wrath on the other side is saying, I'm okay with thinking about me running you over with my car, for example. I'm okay with that. I chuckle. I laugh. Because me and God are like, you see, God? They don't even know that I'm making a decision to stay out of jail today. Ha 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 ha. That's funny, God. See how much growth I have? Now, wrath, on the other hand, is actually carrying out the intention and running these people over with my car. I don't really want to hurt nobody. That ain't my intention. I'm not trying to go to jail and lose my freedom. I'm not trying to, send somebody to the other dimension. That is not, I don't want that on my hands. I don't want that on my conscience. And that definitely ain't gonna help my anxiety. Okay? So I think there is definitely a very necessary space for anger, and as black women, we should exercise in that space more often and see what we can glean from that and what powers we can activate from that space. But just a quick recap. The 5 ways that I know that I am anxious as a black woman are procrastination, lack of celebration, isolation, irritation and agitation, and then anger. I be mad, okay? I be upset. Now, what I will say before we close out this video is that I don't want you to take any of these as a prescription for you, number 1. Number 2, I don't consider any of these things bad things. I don't even consider anxiety a bad thing. I just feel like all of these things are indications to you like, hey, there's something going amok within us. What's happening? It's the indication for you to clue in and zero in and pay attention to what you got going on. Instead of trying to hush those emotions or make myself stop feeling, I just started to realize like, oh, I feel a little something. You know why I feel a little something? Because I'm human and I'm allowed to be human. And I want to extend that grace and extend that invitation to you, my sister, my brother, whoever is watching this. You're human. You're allowed to feel. You're even allowed to be anxious. And maybe these pointers or these things that indicate certain I don't want to say red flags, but that are certain indications to me, maybe it can help you. So until next time, I want you guys to comment, like, subscribe on my video. Hopefully you got something from it. Comment below and tell me what was one of the indications that you realized you had as a Black woman that cued you in on you being anxious. Do you share some similar ones to me? I want to know. Let's continue the conversation. And until next time, I'm your girl, Nicole Denise, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.